So far with this new Lord of the Rings Gollum game, my question has been, to some extent, what will the gameplay look like? We've seen some brief clips in the way of cinematic trailers, in the way that the game will appear. We've certainly heard from the developers as well. I covered one of their featurettes earlier on. The developer being, I forget, I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but Daedalic Entertainment. They're the ones behind this game. I heard their perspective, and I covered it. I hope to at least in some way emphasize it to other Lord of the Rings fans out there who perhaps are wondering, what is the vision behind this game? And what was articulated in that, I forget who was doing the actual narration, but the spokesperson basically said we wanted to create a storyline that fit the Lord of the Rings in regard to the tonality and the storylines of the novels as written by J.R.R. Tolkien. So it sounded like, again, a very faithful adaptation in spirit, right, to the books. And that was very strong. Again, to make that statement directly, I think, deserved a lot of praise, especially in comparison to other Lord of the Rings media. Amazon, I'm looking at you. Anyway, Lord of the Rings Gollum looks like it has a lot of potential, but my curiosity, again, and cinematic stuff has been great. It has a very unique look. I don't believe it's canon to the films, in part because some of the character depictions are different from what was established in the movies, but it looks like it fits into the world of Lord of the Rings. And broadly speaking, yeah, it does have at least some reference to the films, at least in the environmental structures, and let's say the Eye of Sauron, the general Mordor template. You can even see that in the poster, the way Gollum looks. It does fit the movie look. I don't know if it fits in canon to that, or if it's trying to, again, be its one-off adventure, in the books. Although, Lord of the Rings in the video game space has been a popular avenue for adaptations. There's been many video game stories made for various platforms, or even just to fit in the continuity of the game, or to be an adaptation of different elements of the Lord of the Rings universe. This has been a very sustainable ground for extending this franchise forward. The video game space has been big and it still continues to be for Lord of the Rings. So I'm interested again to see more in the work of this space. That's how I came to Lord of the Rings. I had a very unique entrance point, and it wasn't necessarily the books. I need to read the books. Still haven't done that yet. And it wasn't even the movies first. The movies, though, came after. It was the video games. It was Lego Lord of the Rings that brought me in. And that, ever since I played that game, because I love the Lego games, but Lord of the Rings one is my favorite. By and large, I just love that game. That's how I entered the Lord of the Rings world. And ever since then, I've been very impressed by Lord of the Rings gaming. And I'm hoping for a strong release, with Gollum. I don't know how many eyes are on it, but it looks like it has a lot of potential from what I've seen. Though, again, as I stated, this is about the gameplay, specifically with this trailer. My curiosity here is in seeing just how this game will function. Certain points are made in preceding ads about stealth gameplay. That was also visible, I think, in the developer overview, or whatever that video was called. Stealth gameplay, maybe some action stuff. I don't know. Again, stealth was specified. So we'll see how far this goes. I'm sure this will give a good outlook, and it's a more recent trailer. Those, when I covered them, were highly belated. Here we go. Let's take a look at this game at a deeper level.
Something calls us Gollum. What is it, precious? The precious, of course. The precious. We want it. We want it.
Beautiful world design. Yeah, to some degree, Gollum doesn't look exactly like he did in the movies, but I'll forget it. Maybe again, it's supposed to be like a younger iteration. Pretty landscapes. Is that supposed to be Sheila?
Get to higher ground.
I wonder if it's be like a lot of running and traversing different landscapes, not being seen, gathering intel, maybe interacting with some characters. I'm wondering just how intensive the gameplay will be. Because I don't see as much in the way of...
What if he watches us, the Dark Lord? What if he sees?
It looks like a charming release, at least from the sounds of it. Again, it feels like it fits into the Lord of the Rings world quite well. And I have faith, again, the fact that the creator specifically said we wanted to create a extension of Lord of the Rings that fit the spirit of the books. By comparison, again, Amazon, there's a ghost that looms over, what they're doing with the Rings of Power that, unfortunately, fortunately for Gollum, they don't have that level of animus. At least I don't feel that way. Listening to a line about, we wanted to marry this to Tolkien's vision. I was very impressed by that. And it's not the only game to do so. For example, Dune Spice Wars has got the same sentiment about their property, even if that necessarily, again, isn't adjacent to... Although in appearance, it looked like it fit in the movie universe as well. I don't believe it's canon to the movie. I think it's its own thing, because as the creators expressed with their opinions and statements, they wanted to make that game in accordance to Frank Herbert's version of storyline events from the novels that he wrote. I appreciate the level of authenticity and story and how that's presented within the game. I don't know how strong the game appears to be on a gameplay level. Stealth-wise, I like more action-intensive games, in my own opinion. It's a very scenic game. Maybe that's the driving force of your, traversing environments, in a secretive, stealth-like fashion. But there's the part that you really respect about the game is just the scenic imagery of being in the world of Mordor. That could be the point of advantage of what they're going for. Because other than that, there's really no action. It's mostly running, climbing, swimming, hiding. Some familiar characters, like Shelob is here, I believe. And there's, of course, familiar Lord of the Rings creatures within the realms of Mordor and under Sauron's influence. The worlds themselves and the environments of Mordor look like they, again, fit in the spirit of the films. Although, again, the characters have a very distinct look. Thranduil, Gandalf look distinctly different from what's been illustrated previously with the movies. That's why I say I don't think this falls in the realm of canon. Maybe there's at least some implication of some story, some action. Although this looks like a cutscene to me. These darker characters are, kind of cool looking. I'm interested still with Gollum. I just don't know necessarily how strong the gameplay is and how many people will be driven to a stealth form game. Because you think of other Lord of the Rings releases. And this is, again, I'm not trying to be overly critical of this project. I'm just expressing, maybe concern where I see its reception. Other Lord of the Rings releases, for example, let's say Lego Lord of the Rings or the Middle-earth games. I love those too. Those games are action-intensive. Right now, of course, there's still a story. They're still like traversing different environments, but it's not all about stealth, right? There's things to do within the game. Maybe, again, the advantage here is because the realm and the creatures of Mordor are so well designed that's the immediate draw. It's like walking through. What it reminds me of? It reminds me of like a Telltale game. For example, at least from what I'm seeing here, how that's a very different format, right? And the Telltale games are a lot of fun. I think of the Batman stories, but those are, rather than you're running around like in an open world, or you're participating in the action necessary to continue the plot going forward, or to win points for your team or yourself or your faction or whatever, right? There's different games you can think of in the action genre that have that type of format. The Telltale games, it's all story-based, right? Every action moment is you clicking a button on time, or you clicking maybe a series of buttons in order to continue the story going forward, and it's just basically one scene or one drawn-out cutscene. Which, again, those are fine games, and it's a very unique style of telling stories within the gaming world. I'm just wondering, again, what the goal was here. Because what I can see, basically, is like a tourist journey of Middle-earth. I could see that being the pitch, where the gameplay is stealth. And if you don't maintain that stealth, or you're discovered, maybe that's the advantage of like, that's where the challenge comes in. I'm just curious, again, to see how well this is received. Because action Lord of the Rings games do very well. I don't know how a stealth one will do. But maybe it's just the idea. Maybe some fans are looking at this going, a story that is faithful to the vision of Tolkien, or at least that's how the creators express it. That's worth, supporting. That could be, maybe there could be a huge advantage to us being like, just a pool of Lord of the Rings fans. Because you see how vocal they've gotten online in regards to defending the franchise. I mean, Lord of the Rings defenders, you are, and I support you in every way, you are definitely fortifying your defenses. But I could easily see people being like, hey, Amazon, we're going to go support a property over here that knows how to treat Tolkien with respect, especially near the anniversary of his death. That ghost will never leave Rings of Power. It just won't. Anyway, I have a lot of respect for Gollum, at least in how it's been marketed. I'm just curious again to see the overall reception. And with time, we'll see how well it fares. And even just with, the general reception to this ad, or just, the game conversation overall. For those of you who are looking at this game, let's say you're on a first impression standpoint, would you play this, right, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan? For those of you who follow this game, how do you feel this compares for you on an interest level to other Lord of the Rings gaming properties? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on this. Because for me, I'm like, well, I like, that, again, Lord of the Rings in the gaming world. That's how I came, and again, I had a very unique journey. This is how I approached Lord of the Rings entertainment, right? This is what got me to the movies, and then time permitted, at least sometime in the future where I have more time to actually venture into this space, that's what will get me into the books. That'll be the third stage, which should have been actually in the reverse order. It should have been books, movies, then the video games. So again, I went about it in a whole topsy-turvy way. But I just have a lot of curiosity here in seeing the response, right? I don't know. Again, I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below on what you think of Gollum as a game. I mean, what your thoughts are on this ad or some of my, feedback on it overall. I'm generally curious to see the reception, right? I think there's points of interest for me in many ways, as I've articulated, but I also do think there's some points of, potential question. Right? And ultimately resulting in how well will this game fare? That's a question that I honestly don't know if I can predict. I could see moderate success. For those who are familiar with Daedalic Entertainment's gameplay, I'm sure that in part would benefit it as well. We'll see what the overall response is. Again, I'd love to hear feedback from you down below. But just to gauge again what the general audience reception is beyond just my own opinion on this. But, I mean, I don't know. I could see this going a lot of different ways. But I do think with Gollum, there are points of strength to be acknowledged. And I've tried to the best of my ability to reinforce those points where I see that, there's strength to this game. I'm just curious again to see what the fans think overall upon its release, or even, in its marketing stages as of now. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.